Right. Well, thank you, Dave. First of all, talking about the FIBA game, my first opportunity to coach in FIBA and with the national team was way back to 1973. And the game was a lot different in those days. There was a 30-second shot clock. There was no three-point line. And there was actually another rule that I bet you most coaches who are, tuned in tonight don't remember. There were three, when you got fouled in the act of shooting, you had 3 shots to make 2. And that certainly slowed the game down. And you made it quite interesting. So I even forgot about that rule until I started going back and watching some old videos. But the first thing I'd like to talk about is my opportunity, and every coach needs a break along the way. And my break came back in those days. I wasn't even a head coach. I was an assistant coach at what's now Concordia University. And Jack Donahue, our national coach, offered me the job as manager. And that job as manager eventually translated into an assistant coaching position. And I worked with him for 16 years, as you say, as his assistant coach, and traveled the world, and got to see FIBA basketball up front. And I don't think Jack Donahue, they talk about, the last dance and who's the GOAT. Well, to me, the GOAT of Canadian coaching is Jack Donahue. He passed away 15, 20 years ago. But Jack came up, and when he came up to Canada, in 1972, Canada was like, I think 9th or 10th in the last chance tournament for the 72 Olympics. And within 4 years, he had us playing for the bronze medal game in the Montreal Olympics in 1976, and qualified us for 4 straight Olympic games. And after he retired in 1988, we unfortunately been only able to qualify for one Olympic Games, being the 2000 Olympics, and hopefully that's going to change soon. We all know that we have so many NBA players, but Coach Donahue was the man that taught me. He was my mentor and gave me my break. And I know a lot of young coaches today don't really understand the impact that Jack Donahue had on the game of basketball. Two 4th place finishes in the Olympics, a 6th place finish. And like I said, a legacy that unmatched in this country. Back in those days, we'd be traveling in Europe, and they'd be trying to get Coach Donahue to do clinics. Other coaches, Bobby Knight, Lou Conaseca, whatever. The American coaches were in high demand in Europe. Now it's almost the other way around. The FIBA game has evolved to the point where so many NBA teams today, if I venture to say almost most, have some form of an international coach on their staff, if not a head coach. And how the game has evolved in Europe. Interesting story. And don't worry, eventually I'm going to get into the pressure defense, but it's all leads into it. My brother, Tom Konchalski, just retired last week, actually, after 35 or 40 years as the editor and publisher of HSBI scouting service in the States. And before he retired a month ago or so, Rick Pitino gave him a call. And Rick Pitino, of course, coached in Europe last year in Greece. And just, recently was named the head coach of Iona College in New York. And he was looking for a point guard. So Tom was asking him what kind of skills you're looking for in that position. He says, well, I'm not looking for a traditional point guard who wants to have the ball in his hands. I'm going to coach FIBA basketball. He was that impressed with the game and how the game should be played at the offensive end of the court. He said, I just want somebody to get the ball up the court, and then we're going to get into moving and cutting and screening and the FIBA game. He said, but at the defensive end, we're going to play pressure defense. And there is where I think the reason I chose this particular topic was because I think that's one of the things that has been pretty consistent in the game, especially with the way the rules have changed in Canada, in the world, in FIBA, where the shorter shot clock, 8 seconds, 8 seconds in the backcourt, less timeouts, all those things make, I think, pressure defense more effective than ever before. The press that I'm going to talk about, and specifically, is the 1-2-2 three-quarter court press that could move up or back depending upon where you want your trapping angles to be. But that particular press I first saw with the Israeli national team in the late 70s. And I kind of stole it from them, and I've been using it. Well, it's been tweaked several times, obviously, over the 40-something years. But probably of all the defenses I've used, that defense has changed more games than any defense that we've had. And I think, one of the things, if you're going to be a career coach, you have to be flexible. You have to change with society. You have to change as the game changes, obviously, with the three-point line, especially, and all the ball screen action you have to handle defensively today. But you have to change with society as well. And as you grow as a coach, I think what you want to be open-minded. And I've been very fortunate to continue to work with the national team over the last 10 years as a mentor coach, and see some of the great European coaches and your basketball minds around the world and what's going on in the game. But my defensive philosophy has always been one of defensive change. And I know you've had some excellent coaches on over the last week talk about that type of thing. So I'm not going to go too deeply into that, but at the same time, watching a lot of webinars over the last few months, as we all have with our isolation, some coaches, you have a man-to-man coach, you have a zone coach, whatever. Well, I think, to me, the most effective way to play for Steve Konchalski, and we all have to coach within our own personalities and what we're comfortable with, is to change up defenses, keep the other team off balance. Although man-to-man defense is certainly the foundation, and I've heard Jim Boeheim, who's a totally 40-minute a game zone coach, talk about how much man-to-man defensive drills that they do every single day in practice to build the foundation you need to be a good pressure defensive team, or even to be a good zone defensive team. Again, changing momentum of the game. You can substitute, you can call timeouts, but changing defenses has worked in my coaching philosophy for us the best way. It also does a couple of things. By changing defenses, you're working on your communication system. And if you hear Mike Krzyzewski talk about an offensive system, a defensive system, and a third system, a communication system, if you're constantly changing defenses, or even doing it to a less of a degree, but changing defenses, it requires communication. So you're building those skills within your team. The other thing it does is it allows you to practice against a variety of defenses, legitimate defenses. And what I mean by that, defenses that have been, broken down by the coaches, and not just thrown in there, say we're playing against the zone, so let's put up a 2-3 zone, but it's not really a 2-3 zone. So you get a chance to play against a variety of defenses that prepares you for the game situation in a real life game. I can think of one instance. I can remember 10 or 15 years ago, we're playing in the national tournament, and we hadn't seen a zone defense for 10 games. Because AUS is basically a man-to-man defensive league for the most part. We hadn't seen a zone defense for like I say, probably 10 games. And all of a sudden, in the national semis, I think it was York University came out with a zone. And fortunately, because we play zone ourselves and we work on zone defense every day in practice, we also obviously work on a zone offense. And in that situation, I think we scored 7 out of our first 9 possessions and broke the game open after having not seen it in the game situation. So I'm just saying that if you are a proponent of this, I'm not trying to convince people that that's the way they should coach, if that's not the way they're comfortable. But nonetheless, those are some of the advantages, I think, of playing multiple defenses and training your team to attack those defenses in practice. Now, the 1-2-2 press that I mentioned, we saw first. I saw first in Israel. I think it's more effective than it was back then because the shorter shot clock and the 8 seconds in the backcourt. One of the big things we find in that defense is you do force potentially 2 or 3 8-second counts in the backcourt per game. The other thing it does is it makes scoring guards passers. So, and we'll see on some of the clips that I'm going to show in a few minutes, how all of a sudden you're playing against a high-scoring guard and they have to attack the press from the backcourt and they become passers. If they have a high-scoring big man, obviously you don't come down and just throw it into the big man. It takes a few passes to get the ball inside. You're eating up the clock. You're making it much more difficult. For those guards to get the ball into the big man. By having 2 players in the back, you also are guarding the basket so that you have a goaltender at all times. A lot of presses that extend out over the court have one man in the back, and that player, unless he or she is a terrific decision maker, is athletic, can often make a mistake. And if they do, there's nobody to erase that mistake behind them. In this press, you have two people in the back, one a goaltender, and one is more aggressively taking away a pass up the sideline or closing a vertical trap. When to use it, I think obviously to change the tempo of the game. I think you want to use it in situations where your opponent's personnel is such that maybe they have some inexperienced guards in the game, or the guards are smaller, so you can close some traps and it's more difficult for them to see out of those traps, and you can force some tough passes that you could potentially turn into turnovers. So those are the reasons why, and a little bit of background into our presses. Now, what we do, and I know every coach has a different. I'm going to move my screen here a little bit so everybody can see this. A different system to describe their press or describe their defenses. What I've always done is anything that's full court and we don't allow the ball onto the court is the 50 series. Right? The 40 series is anything there where it was full court, but we do allow the ball onto the court. The 30 series is 3/4 court, and depending upon what defense we're going to play, well, it could be a 33, it could be a 32, it could be a 31, or whatever. If it's full court man-to-man, we go 51. If it's full court, we're allowing the ball in the court, it could be 41, right? And this could be 31 if it's man-to-man. Anything we pick up at half court, the first digit indicates the level of the court at which you pick up your defense. The second digit indicates the action. So if this is a 3-2 press or a 1-2-2 press, which we call a 3-2, that would be half court. That would be a 23. And then back in the court, obviously you'd be first digit indicates we're going to the court, and a 1 would be man-to-man. A 2 would be, for instance, if we're a 1-2-2 zone, a 2-3 zone. So the press that we're going to be talking about, we call it our 33 because it lines up at 3/4 court, okay, with a 3-man umbrella, right, and 2 players in the back, okay, 2 players in the back, okay. So we call that our 33 press. Now, getting into this press, right, usually the reason why we use numbers is because most of our colors we use to color code our ball screen defensive actions. So I like to use numbers. Now, so let's take a look at this press. The key position on this press is the top position right here. You want an athlete that is an athlete. You want somebody with length, so preferably somebody in a men's game, 6'3" or bigger, preferably, and somebody that's rangy and that works hard, because if they work hard, then the rest of the press feeds off of their energy. If this player here is soft, then likely the same thing will hold true to the back of the press. So when the first thing we do is we line up like this. As soon as the ball comes on the court, we want to pressure the basketball, preferably forcing to the sideline to keep them on one side of the court, keep the basketball on one side of the court. Depending upon the personnel, if this player here is a player that likes to, it's a really good handle, likes to beat the press off the dribble, then we will tell our point man or our director, if you want to call this position here, to play this player more in a containment mode, because you don't want to get beat off the dribble by playing in this angle here, and obviously them splitting the defense right away. So we want this player is key, that he or she is on the ball right away with pressure, forcing sideline, and like I said, unless this is a dribble. This first player here in the second row is faking up, but not really wanting to come up. Because of the 8-second count, we call this our 33 web. It's like a spider web. The insects come into the spider web, if you want to visualize that, as opposed to the spider web coming out and trapping an insect. So as the ball comes here, we're faking up. We don't want to trap too far out into the backcourt, other than to keep it unpredictable. So if the ball's here, this player here should be 6 feet from the sideline with his back to the sideline and faking up and faking back. So the ball handler, as he comes here, and he's been controlled by the point, right? As he comes here, he doesn't know exactly when we're going to close this trap. On the same side, on the ball side, the back man, right, will come up and take anybody here, take the first pass away up on the sideline, all right? The other back man will now become the goaltender. He'll make sure nothing is thrown up over our heads. If there's nobody in this area, he can come up and match up a little bit up into this area, but his main responsibility is to take away anything here in the back line, okay? Now, in the second row, the player opposite the ball will retreat to what we call the shallow middle. And he is going to take anybody that's in this middle area and make sure the ball does not get to the middle. That is critical, right? You keep the ball out of the middle is critical. We are allowing this pass back. So if the dribbler comes toward the trapper starts coming here and he throws the ball back, we are allowing that pass. Why? Because it can't hurt us. The passes that can hurt us are in the front court, right? Are in the front court. So we want to allow this pass back. Again, it's eating up time on the 8-second shot clock as well as the 24-second shot clock. Now, the man that has shallow middle, it's important that he stay there until his teammate on the second row is on a dead sprint to getting here and now taking the middle. Once he gets within one step of the middle, he is going to release this player here, who's now going to try to close a second trap right here. And the point man here is now following the basketball, and he's trying to force the ball into the second trap right here. Now, the back line comes up, takes away anything along the sideline here. The man who was on the ball side previously now becomes the goaltender, right? So that's the general way of how this press works. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail as we take a look at a couple of things here. First of all, before the ball gets on the court, right? So our point man is lining up closest to the point guard because as soon as the ball gets there, he wants to put pressure on the basketball. So this player here is worried about him, whereas if he's back up here playing a little bit of cat and mouse, he can see passes up the court. Before that even happens, right? So but here's the important point is we want the ball to come onto the court in front of us. We do not want to deny this. Because if we deny this, then they may find somebody up here and we're out of our press completely. Okay? So everybody, soon as the inbounder takes the ball inbounds, and when do we use this press? Most of the time it's after scores. It could be after a dead ball in the backcourt or a dead ball anywhere in the fourth quadrant of the court. We can still set up. If it's a dead ball on the sidelines in the fourth quadrant, we can still set up in that press, and it can be effective. Okay, so as soon as the ball is retrieved by the inbounder, and he starts going here, we start sprinting to our spots, trying to find people. The point man is coming up here, getting onto the basketball, the closest wants to be closest to the point guard as possible, but not looking to deny it. Let the ball come in close enough to put pressure on it immediately. All right. So the back line again is matching up with anybody in their area. The same thing holds true here. Okay. A couple more teaching points. All right. First of all, as the ball progresses from the trapper here, the point man is directing it in here. Now we come up to trap. Okay. As soon as these two players are within 2 steps of the ball, they must trap. Because if that's not going to happen, if this player here and these 2 players here are 2 steps away, there's no pressure on the passer, and we've committed 2 players already to the ball, now we're playing 3 against 4 on the rest of the court. So as soon as the ball is player with the basketball is within 2 steps of the trappers, they must trap. Now, when they do trap, this player's vision is going to be limited. We're going to take away the first pass here, right? The only pass we're allowing is this one back here. And if this is a sloppy pass, we'll go and shoot the gap and look for that pass. But basically, we're for the most part allowing that back and trying to take away anything in here. As the ball progresses to center court, this fellow in the shallow middle is likely going to drop into what we call a deep middle. So that will be the same thing. That same player who had shallow middle will now have deep middle. Keeping the ball out of the middle of the court is critical for this press to be effective. The second part is, again, if there is somebody, well, let's do it this way first. The ball's here, and they don't put anybody in the middle. Often, most teams, okay, they don't put anybody there, but we're here standing there guarding guarding no one. A lot of teams will put a player on a diagonal. So we say, if you have to be in an open stance, If you're standing here not guarding anybody, you can cheat over here to take away this diagonal pass. But be close enough that if they flash somebody in here, you can come back at them and keep the ball out of the middle, right? Now, the back line of the press is usually, to be perfectly honest with you, the hardest to teach, because a lot of bigs don't like to leave the paint. A lot of bigs gravitate toward playing in this area. And when that happens, then you can't take away that pass to the sideline and they can break the press too easily. You have to get your bigs to commit to coming up here, playing away from the basket, and confidence that their other big teammate is back here in this area taking care of the goal, right? And as the ball reverses to the other side of the court, right, they reverse positions. The goaltender now takes away, sprints to take away this pass, and this player now becomes the goaltender to make sure we're not giving up any layups, okay? So the two biggest areas, I would say, of challenge in teaching this press is this action here, okay, this action here, where they do have somebody in the middle. We're taking that away. The pass comes back from here to here. This player here must wait until this player's on a dead sprint, and when they get it within a step, they can go here, and the trap might be a little bit lower here, but they're going to get a trap. Okay. The second part of the issue is the back line must be active and must communicate. So if somebody flashes into an area, for instance, we're in this press right here, right? The ball's coming into the trap, and they have somebody way up here right behind the trapper. This defender must say, let him know that somebody's coming and back up, and he can take that away, so we don't have to bring this backline defender all the way up into the front of the into the half court area, because he has a long slide to get back to defend the goal. Same thing holds true in the backcourt. If you trap too far up into the backcourt and there's somebody in the middle and the ball gets reversed to this side of the court, this is a long run to get to this position here. So basically the areas we want to trap, so we want to trap in this area here, or this area here, or if they get across half court, it's even obviously more ideal to trap in these areas here. Okay? Now, if we don't have a trap in any of those, if we don't get a trap, the ball crosses half court and we don't have a trap either here or here, we are going what we call home. And what we've been doing, you can go back to man, but we've been going back into basically a 2-3 zone most of the time. Or you could be a 3-2 zone. The reason why we go back into a zone is because they've already eaten up a good 10, 12 seconds off the shot clock to beat this press, to get the ball up into the scoring area. Now, they only have that 10, 12 seconds on the shot clock, right, to find a good shot against the zone. So what we do in setting up the zone is the point man here usually will go back. If the ball gets up here, point man will go, and so our zone will set up and we'll look like this, right? And our point man will go, if this is our point man, he will go to the back of the zone. And the reason why we like that is because the point man is usually a bigger player, rangier, and we want to keep him on the boards, especially as a weak side rebounder. Okay? So those are the basic, rotations. We obviously can break this down, right? We can break this down by working just these 3 players in the backcourt. in terms of breakdown drills, right? And having players in this area, having them cover areas, and we can break down the front court as well, separate from the back court. So again, what are the advantages? Advantage number one, you can get an 8-second count. Advantage number two, you can get a trap and get a steal. Advantage number three, you're making passers out of some scoring guards. Advantage number four, when you come down and they have to attack, whether either the man-to-man or zone, they have a lot less time to find a good shot because they've used time to pass the ball back and forth. And as long as you haven't given up pass to the middle, all right, you usually can prevent a team from scoring. And as long as they're not scoring, you can stay into that press. Okay, so that's basically how the movement on the press is, and I'm now going to get an opportunity. If I don't, hopefully I'm going to be able to do this the way it was planned. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, and I'm going to
find your video.
Now they're asking me for a password. Why is that happening?
Oh, they shouldn't.
Okay, I got it. You got it?
It's there.
Did everybody see that?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, now, on this first possession, you're going to see ball pressure and you're going to see us close some traps right here now. Right now, that's the kind of pressure you want to have on the basketball right there. You want a player this player here is about 6'3", and you can carve a role for your players. This player, we've had all Canadians play at this position. And they loved it because they got a steal and they're the first person down the court for a dunk, right? So they love that position. This particular athlete right here was a role player, but he carved a role for himself because he played this position so well that not every game, but there was 1 out of every 3 games or so, he would come in and change the game by coming in and playing this position. So he's on the ball right away. Our other players here are matched up. Okay, again, open stance so you can see what's happening on the court. All right, now, so as the ball progresses, right, goes from guard to guard. Again, he chases him down, right? He's got hands up. This is huge right here. His hands are up so that he limits the passing angles. We're matched up right behind him right here, right? So what is he going to do? He's probably going to pass the ball back over here, all right? Again, it's eating up the valuable time on the shot clock. It's coming up here. Now we have the control situation right here, okay? And right over center court, we've got a great trap. Both of these guys have their hands up, right? They're not reaching in because the referee's looking right there. Referee's looking for a foul as soon as you reach in. So, and this player here is now splitting these 2 guys right here. He's trying to read his eyes and see where that pass is. I think he's doing the right thing. He's closest to the closer receiver than the further receiver, but basically wants to split both of these 2 guys. Okay, now, even he tries to split us, the guys did a great job keeping their hands up, right? And that's great. Arms right there, no reaching. We're matched up here. He's splitting these 2 guys, and you can't see it in this corner, but we're taking away the first pass in the corner. Okay? So now what happens now? He has to throw this pass over here. Okay, so now we are matched up. Now you see the point man is now leaving to go to the weak side of our 2-3 zone. Okay? So one thing you want to take a look at, and I'm just going to take this back a second. Okay, these 2 players. Okay, this player here was the MVP of the AUS. This player here was on the national all-rookie team, might have been rookie of the year in the country. We made them passers, at least on this one possession, right? We made them passers, right? And now they start their offense. When they start their offense right there, okay? And you can't see the shot clock on this screen because the shot clocks are on this side of the court, but I've timed each one of these possessions, and it's now 8 seconds left on the shot clock right now. So they have 8 seconds in order to start their zone attack. So you can see how it shortens the game, gives them less options. As long as you keep the ball out of the middle, right, you're basically going to shorten the shot clock for your opponent and give them less opportunities to score and less opportunities to find their go-to players. Okay? Okay, now second possession, you're going to see, okay, we have the same player here, and he comes up right up on the ball with hands up. That's just limiting his vision, limiting his vision right there. Okay. Now, as the ball progresses, right, once again, we allow that pass back. Now we're coming here. Now we're getting into another great trapping situation. Okay. Now, right here, okay, he's splitting these two guys right here. We're matched up over here, right? And he should be a little bit higher right here. This back man here should be a little bit higher. Okay. Okay. Now, we don't steal the ball in either one of these possessions, right? But what you're going to see right now is they're starting their offense with 11 seconds left on the shot clock, right? They're starting their offense with 11 seconds on the shot clock, and they're not really, they're having to shoot a contested three as the clock winds down. So the press did its job. Okay, possession 3 now. We have a little bit different guy right on the top. He's not as tall, right? And one of the things we have to do is if you have a bigger man up here, but he can pressure a bigger guard or even a forward. If we have a smaller guy, we usually fake at the forward because he's going to throw over him anyway. So we just fake at him, and as soon as he dribbles, we'll attack him, right? But right now he's playing this angle right here, okay? Making the pass back and forth, eating up clock, right? Now, here's the problem with this trap. Problem with this trap is we are both defenders are within 2 steps of the ball handler, right? But we haven't closed the trap, so we've given him too easy a look right here. We want to, if you're this close to the ball handler, we want to close that trap. And by the way, this is Javon Masters, leading scorer in the history of youth sports basketball. So we're making him a passer. Okay, so now as this progresses up, we have the middle covered right now, all right? We're not worried about him. We want to keep this middle covered. Now, right here, this player here leaves too soon, and we can't get there in time. So let's see, he leaves too soon. He should stay until he's on his dead sprint, until he gets to about here. Then he can go and trap. The trap will probably be down around this area right here. But you don't want the ball in the middle. That's a cardinal sin, right? And it's too long a slide if you trap too far out into the backcourt, right? Now, once again, you get back here. We're making scorers become passers, all right? And they pull the ball out. Now they're running their offense with 10 seconds left on the shot clock, okay? So the press has done its job. Again, forcing a tough shot, contested 3, that's the shot clock winds down, okay? Okay, now, again, what's happening here, again, we can have a little bit more pressure on the ball, and the other thing is his hands are down, right? So that's not what we want. We want to cut his vision down as much as possible, okay? So those are a couple of things we could improve upon. We are taking away the middle, all right? We do force the ball, all right, back to the other guard, okay? Now he gets the middle, that's very good. So now we got the middle covered, right? Now we should close this trap because we're 2 steps away, right? Okay, now the back line here, as he moves from the middle to the sideline, is where our back line, again, the tendency of the bigs in this press is to stay, 2 guys staying in here. So we got 2 guys doing one person's job. So he should be up here meeting him as he leaves the middle, taking that pass away, and we still have a goaltender in the back, okay? And despite that, they start their zone offense with 14 seconds left on the shot clock. Not a lot of time to find a good shot. Okay? Now, we're going to get to the next sequence. Again, forcing a tough shot later in the shot clock. Now, okay, now this is a little bit different. We're on the road. We're at Memorial University, and we have even a third guy now is up on the press right now. He's about 6'3", but he's not as athletic as the first two players, but he is rangy at 6'3", and is a smart player. All right, so you can get away with that if you have somebody who's a smart player. He is using his arms to his benefit right there. Okay, now this press looks like we've moved it back here to what we call 23, which all the differences in the 23 is instead of trapping out here, we're going to try to trap over center court as opposed to our first option to trap here. Okay, I'll explain the 23 in another minute. But as you can see, we got the middle covered. Okay, in this situation right here. Right now, again, the back line, we have the middle covered, but the back line is not doing a good enough job of coming up and handling. You see, we let that pass go up to the corner too easily. That should have been taken away. As well as the goaltender, right, is lax here because he should be protecting the goal to anybody that's coming into this area, and he doesn't do a good job. So I'm not just showing you when this press works. This is what happens when it doesn't, when we don't take care of business, right? When we allow the ball to the middle or we allow the easy pass up the sideline and the goaltender doesn't do his job, he should be sprinting to the ball side of this player right here. They're both in position to do their job if they took one or two more steps, okay? Okay, now this next one, again, you have number 10 again up on the ball. He does a very good job, okay? Now, again, what you're going to see right here, okay, we have middle cover, right? So the back man is coming up to handle this if he comes into this area, right? What you're going to see is happening is this player right here, number 4, does not sprint to get to the middle, and consequently the press is broken. He's got to be, as soon as this pass is made here, he's got to make a dead sprint to take away the middle, okay? And he doesn't do that. He retreats instead of taking care of the middle. So consequently, they make the easy pass. They reverse the ball wherever they want to get it. Okay, so that was not, you can see the problem with that. Okay, now, again, this one is illustrates again that middle rotation. Okay, when there's somebody on the ball, if somebody is on the middle right here, we have the middle covered, right? We have the middle covered, but on reversal, he leaves too soon. He doesn't wait for him to get there, and consequently, the ball is going to get to the middle, which is, again, a cardinal sin. If you keep the ball out of the middle, basically you're going to keep people off the scoreboard. You're going to eat up clock, and the press is going to do what you want it to do. Okay, now here's a good example of they have a big man here, so we don't want to pressure him. He's got 2 or 3 inches over our point man here. So just fake at him, let him make, if he dribbles, attack the dribble. If not, just play cat and mouse with him and now close this trap over here, right? Now, you see the back line allows a flash man coming into the middle. The back line's got to come up and take that away, okay? Once again, now they make the first pass on against the defense with 11 seconds left on the shot clock. So again, it's been effective even though we didn't do it exactly the way we wanted to do it. Okay, 2 more situations I'm going to show you, right? Okay, again, the activity level of the point man is critical. Everybody feeds off of this, right? Second row here, what's wrong with him? He should have an open stance so he can see the middle of the court, who's coming from the middle, and be able to put his head on a swivel and see who's behind him. He's got a closed stance, and that's something we would want to correct. Okay. Now, okay, now the ball's being moved. Now this is called a vertical trap. When we bring a big man up from the back court, the front court, and we trap with the man who's in the second row man. This is called a vertical trap, and it's a good trap. Now, what should happen is the point man should stay here and split these two, right? He should come all the way up here, and then this guy here is matched up with this guy right here. But we do have a good trap on right there. Yeah, now you're going to watch this right here, and the first pass on your offense against the zone right here, bang, 6 seconds left on the shot clock, right? So we don't give them a lot of time to find what they want to find, right? We don't give them a lot of time to what we want to find there. Okay, one more possession here, and this is the last one. Again, we've got some pretty good pressure here, but again, the back line doesn't come up and take this pass away. And when that happens, you got to get those two players in the back. Now, one of the ways you can correct this is by putting a guard back here. If you can put, if one of your forwards is mobile enough to play the top and rangy enough, athletic enough, then you can put a guard back here, and that might actually enhance your communication as well as enhance perhaps your mobility. Okay, so now we're back, and I'm just going to mention two more things, and then open it up for a couple of questions. This pressure defense can be moved, right? Can be moved. What we say 23. The only difference in the 23 is we're still pressuring the ball when it comes in. It's critical that we put full pressure on the basketball when it comes in. Okay? So when the ball is here, we want full pressure on the basketball. Okay? But our second row, instead of being here, we're going to move our second row back a little bit further. And when we use our 23, we do it for one of two reasons. The offense has gotten used to, right? The offense has gotten used to the trapping angles, the areas where we're going to trap. Or we're playing against a very good three-point shooting team, and we want to get back into our zone quicker. So instead of making a rotation from here back into a zone, we're making the rotation from here back into the zone. So it's the same thing, the same rotations. You have less distance to cover in the front court here. Might actually help the big men a little bit. And our traps are going to be here. We're not really trying to trap out here in the 23. And you can actually extend this, and we've done it in many different situations, in playoff situations or whatever. Extend this up all the way up to make it a 43. Okay, make it a 43. In which case you would want to make put full pressure here when you really need the basketball, or after a free throw as a surprise tactic, and then as he steps on the court, come up here and shoot the gap and look for that steal. But anyway, this is the 1-2-2 press that I think could be very well used given the FIBA game and given the shot clock and the 8-second count that we use in the backcourt. And like I said, we've used it to change so many games over the years. And if you have the right personnel to put into those positions, and you're playing against another team whose personnel may have difficulty handling that press, then it can really work in your benefit. And again, be very effective given the rule set that we have with our FIBA rules.
That was great, Coach. We've got a couple of questions we're going to get to.
Sure.
So the first one I'm going to ask you is, what are the verbal cues your players are using? So looks like there's a lot of moving pieces. What are they saying to each other, or what are the calls on the floor to communicate to the pieces to have them connect?
Okay, well, first of all, the point man has no cues there. He does the same job, whether it's 33, 23, or whatever.
Yeah.
We will call out shallow middle, right? if there's a man flashing into the middle of the court, right? We will call out deep middle if there's a man flashing into the area between the center circle and the top of the key. We will call sideline if there's somebody coming in from the front court into toward the center court line, where we want our second row to back up, right? And the other calls are basically goaltender, and those types of things. And you can make your own verbal calls as long as this communication. You might call flash. Flash usually means that somebody's flashing into the middle, as most teams do. And one of the things that we've done is we have, instead of flashing a big man into the middle, we like to flash a guard into the middle so that we can attack from that position. So the big man just doesn't catch it, as you saw in one of those clips. The big man caught it and just threw it back into the backcourt. We want to attack and put a guard there. Now, a guard's a smaller target, but at the same time, a guard is more dangerous to be able to put the ball on the floor and create.
You showed the trap with the big in the second row. How often do you make that trap? And then what are some of the disadvantages of that deeper trap?
Okay. We don't make it as often as we would like to because, again, our back line, you're always trying to get those big men to gravitate away from the play, defending in the paint. But if you have athletic big men, they can come up there. I'd say the disadvantage would be you're going to now send your second big is going to have to guard the corner if they get that pass out of that trap. And then your zone is going to be, if you're going back to the zone, your zone is going to be out of sync. You're going to temporarily have a smaller man in the middle of that zone. If you're in man-to-man, then obviously you're just going to match up and not worry about matchups and get back to your matchups when it's safe to do so.
A question here about where it looks like you have your 4 and your 5 man back a lot in the press. Who do you crash the boards with? Do they crash and get back, or how does that work? Do you change anything on that?
Well, that's why we run it. That's why we only use it after makes, dead ball, and dead ball situations. So we give them a chance to get back. But having said that, it's a very good point, very good question, because as I mentioned, one of the things we've done in certain years is if we had personnel such that our 4-man could play the top of that press, we would play him up there, and then a guard who would normally be in a get back safety position, he'd be back there already. So that does help us a little bit if you wanted to do it that way.
Okay, last one. Someone's wondering about how you teach your second row players to go towards the trap, retreat, contain. What do you do for breakdowns for these drills or for the second and third rows? How do you teach this in practice, I guess is the question.
Well, basically, we would do it from this perspective. We would, let's take this if this is the back row here. Okay, so we're gonna put a coach here, right? We're gonna put a coach here, and maybe a coach here. Maybe even you could even fill these positions here. Actually, you can fill all 5 positions. So if you forced your back row to take this position here, right? The ball being here, right? Coming into this trap. And we trap this here, right?
Can you raise that up a little bit, Coach? Just so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So what we would do is we would take this defender here, and we would say, okay, now you're going to do the same thing. You're going to split here, and eventually the point man, because he's not involved in this trap, this point man can come here and he make a read, or he can just go back here and he can take the goaltender's position and he can come out and take the corner. So we would basically handle it this way so that the back line gets used to sprinting. The big thing that they have to do is sprint from this position. Okay, if they have to come up and take the ball here and the ball gets reversed, they have to sprint. All right, the ball gets reversed over here. He's got to sprint here. He's got to sprint there.
Yeah.
And obviously, the more athletic you are, the easier you can do that. And as well, if you have a guard back there, you have more mobility. And normally, and that's just a general statement, but if you have a guard that's a really good communicator, again, he'd be very effective back there for several reasons. Being a safety and being there already, being more mobile, and perhaps being more better communicator. So,
Yeah, no, that helps for sure.
Yeah, it helps for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks, Coach. I think there's a lot of great stuff in it, and I think, like you said, there's a lot of pieces to it. But thanks for sharing that. I'm going to give you the final word here on the Cross Canada Coaches Clinic, and then we're going to wrap it up. We want to again thank you for your time and for sharing everything you did today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave. I'm just going to finish by saying that I think this is a great initiative. To showcase. There's obviously a silver lining to every cloud, and the cloud that we're under right now in the whole world is giving us, coaches a chance to communicate, and giving Chris Oliver and the group giving Canadian coaches a chance to feed off of each other, learn from each other, because I think Canadian coaches are some of the best coaches in the world. And friends of mine who have gone on to the NBA, friends of mine who have gone on to the NCAA, they verify that. They say the level of, I had a friend of mine who went down and was an assistant coach in the program at Kentucky. And he said the only difference between the situation he was coaching with the national team in Canada and Kentucky was Kentucky had a lot more money. So, but in terms of the game, teaching the game and the professionalism that we have in this country, obviously, if all these players are going on to the NBA and the WNBA, somebody's doing a great job on the grassroots level and hopefully on the youth sports level as well.